Welcome back everyone. Today we're adding more damage to our druids, and this is because it will eventually become needed on builds that use Pulverize as a spender. And there's several variants floating around, but the information is accurate for all of them. For transparency, the point at which it started to slow down was between tier 40 and tier 45 Nightmare Dungeons, but results may vary. We won't be changing any skills, aspects, or stat priority on our equipment, making it super simple regardless of which version you play. We're just going to add damage by optimizing our Paragon and glyphs by starting to pick up some of those nodes I mentioned in previous videos that we skipped when catering specifically to leveling. These changes will help us clear much higher Nightmare Dungeons to rapidly evolve our glyphs for even more power spikes. Please be aware that the higher level you are, the more benefit there is, since you'll have more Paragon points to spend, and I'd suggest being around 75 or higher before making some of these changes. Our focus is to pick up as many modifiers for damage that scale well. For example, Earthen Devastation, which can deal up to 40% multiplicative critical strike damage on your Earth skills, like Pulverize, thanks to Aspect of the Earth Sign Horror. And if you're new to the guide series, there are links in the description for all the previous videos and to D4 builds where you can find all the relevant information on my version of the build. But again, today's video will cover general themes that apply to all Pulverize builds. Now, we aren't going to ignore additive sources of damage because we want a good ratio between the two types of damage sources per damage type, and that's just a confusing way of saying we want variety. We're going to dip into nearby useful nodes while on the way to the best ones. Much easier to understand, and staying true to simple concepts, I went ahead and searched YouTube for D4 Season 2 Druid builds. Currently, Moxsy has the most popular version of Pulverize, so what I did from there was rearrange all the Paragon boards to match the order, pathing, and glyphs, because even though our builds use different skills, and his version uses unique items where mine doesn't, the Paragon and glyph choices have the same intention, dealing lots of damage with just enough survivability. Although I did make some tweaks throughout the boards, it is in no way enough to call it my own creation, so huge thanks to Moxsy for the great content and willingness to share his builds with the community. The starting board will look like this once you have enough points, and 2 of the dexterity nodes can be removed until you have the exploit glyph at level 15. Exploit allows us to quickly apply vulnerable to tons of mobs, ramping up our clear speed dramatically. Next board will be Earthen Devastation, grabbing the additional damage to crowd-controlled enemies along the way. As you work up towards the legendary node itself, and as mentioned, it's a multiplicative source, very strong. Continuing upward from where we cut in, we'll unlock the glyph node. Ultimately, Undaunted will go here, but it won't be active until leveled and more nodes are unlocked, so feel free to put something else here temporarily. The Earthen Power Cluster for additional critical strike damage on Pulverize, a 2-point dip for the bonus armor, and then unlock our next board again. Placing the Ancestral Guidance board, but the legendary node as far away as possible, and that's because we'll come back into this board later from the top side. What we're doing here is unlocking the glyph Dominate, another multiplicative source, along with core skill damage and a bit of resistance. Back to the previous board, we'll basically go straight up and into the Survival Instincts board now. This is one section I reconfigured to still get the Werebear glyph active from the 40 willpower requirement and the Werebear skill damage nodes while saving 2 Paragon points. But before grabbing those, take the legendary node first, since it's multiplicative and the other sources are not. From there, pick up just the required and most valuable magic nodes, along with the rare nodes, glyph slot, and head out the right side. A quick pass through Constricting Tendrils for the glyph slot, placing Outmatch there, and taking the rare nodes along the way towards the south gate. Back into Ancestral Guidance, we'll work towards the legendary node, grabbing the rare node and Spirit on Kill magic nodes as well here. These will help tremendously with trash. Go back to the Survival Instincts board and work your way to the left gate, selecting Inner Beast, where we'll grab the glyph slot for Fang and Claw, along with the 2 rare nodes. You'll be short 2 points, unless you withheld them from near the exploit glyph at the start. But regardless, look for glyphs that don't need all of the nodes near them to activate them any longer since they've been leveled up. Or take points from the least needed magic nodes at this point. This will give you access to the final rare node on this board. With that, your Paragon board is reconfigured and clear paths of where to head at each point. This will now give you the needed damage boost to continue clearing content. Regardless of which version of a Pulverized build you're using, it mainly relies on overpower to deal massive hits that basically one-shot or chunk mobs like bosses. Because of this, it's important to use a playstyle that's constantly moving and uses windows of opportunity to put your damage out. Since the number of times you can overpower is somewhat limited by timers, this allows the builds to thrive with minimal methods of generating spirit. It also means we need a way of killing the bosses in these higher tier Nightmare Dungeons, which is why it's so important to optimize our Paragon Tree and glyph selection. Best of luck as you continue towards 100 this season, and thanks for taking the time to watch.